I
All
understand.
right. Good afternoon, Christina. How are you?
I am well. I am so excited to be here.
Well, welcome to Living Intentional with Suzy Rawlins. This is my podcast, and I am honored to have you as a guest. The layout's just going to be I'm going to ask you some questions to get to know you so that our viewers get to know you more about what you do and how you're, using your gifts and talents in this world.
Awesome. Sounds good.
So tell me just a little bit more about your background.
My background. Well, I guess my background started as far as this conversation, probably when I was in my mid 30s, and I had done all the things that my mom told me I should do to be happy. And the college degree and the job and the husband and the all the things. And I had all the things at 35, and I became more depressed than I had ever been in my life. I was physically ill to that point, and I was crying on the way to work every day. And I mean, now I look back at it and I'm like, oh, that was like a midlife calling, not, but it was a crisis. It certainly felt like a crisis.
Yeah.
And I had to seek therapy. What I learned was I had done the path that my mom had laid out for me, but I had never really asked myself what it is that I wanted. And a therapist finally asked me, Christina, what is it that you actually want? And I was like, well, I want to be a good mom. I want to be a good wife. I want to be a good daughter. And she's like, no, 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 no. What is it that you want for yourself? Like, that's all how you are showing up for other people. How do you want to show up for yourself? And that took me probably years to answer before I could actually get close to that. So really what I do is try to make it easier for women to get to that answer because it can be a frustrating kind of path of going, I don't know what I want to. I mean, first time somebody asks you, what is it that you want to do? And it's like you start thinking and you're like, by 30s, 40s, 50s, you forget that you can dream still, like want to stay in our little comfort zone. And so I help women get out of their comfort zone so that they can feel really confident in life and have a life that they want.
I love that because I feel like as women specifically, we don't embody us because we're the mom, the wife, the daughter, all the things, right? And so I've worked with a lot of women too, and when you ask a woman that question, what is it that you want? What makes you happy? It's like a deer in a headlight look.
Hmm.
When, like what you said, well, I want to be a good mom, I want to be a good wife, and they're like, nope, you're not answering a question. And then they're like, I don't have anything.
Or they start with not this. It's what I usually get because one of the first questions I usually ask a new client is if I had this magic wand right here, what would you change? And or what would you want to see? And they go, well, not this struggle that I'm having at work, not this conflict I'm having in my
Oh,
relationship, not this feeling like garbage about myself and saying all this negative self-talk. So often our clarity, it's not clarity, but it's the start of our clarity of at least eliminating some things
yeah.
and being like, I want to change these things. But to me, that's really survival mode. We're focused on all the things that we don't want. And I'm sure you've heard the phrase before, what we focus on grows. So
Yes.
if we're constantly focused on all these things that we want to be different, then we're not really in thriving mode because thriving mode is about, I want that, so I'm running towards that. Surviving is, I'm running away from this because I don't want this, or I'm trying to resolve this, whatever.
Yes.
I'm moving away for, I don't want to, but what are we doing? We're looking at the thing that we don't want and go and just staring at it.
I love that. And you use the word thrive, girlfriend. That's my word for this year. It's right here on my desk. Like I can't even make that up because it was right here. I was like,
Yeah.
yes, I absolutely love that. Um, okay, so you kind of told me what the turning point for you for starting to live more intentionally. But what does living intentionally mean to you?
Living intentionally. I actually have an entire process around living intentionally that I go through every client when they get there. And the shortest gist of it is we've all done a vision board or 20 in our lifetime, right? but we don't go deep enough on the vision board. We have those things on the vision board because we want to feel a certain way. So I put a house on there. Maybe it's because I want to feel secure. Maybe it's that I want connection. I want a big house that could have a lot of people come over. But there's feelings that if I had this or was this or did this, I would feel. And that's behind everything that we do as human beings. If we could just get to those feelings, those are our actual intentions. And so for me, my words for this year is bold, open, and love. And so everything, all the choices that I make in my life have to be aligned with that. What am I going to eat for breakfast? Well, what's going to help me feel bold, open, and love? What next project am I going to take on? What that is intentional living, is aligning what I do in my life with what I say I want to feel. And that really came to me because what happened for me is I kept waiting to be happy, right? I gotta wait until I have the degree and the husband and the house and the blah blah, and then I'll be happy. And then when I got there and I had all those things, I wasn't happy because you can't have happy when you get there if you don't bring happy with you. And so this
Yes.
way, we can live how we want to live now. We don't have to wait to be happy.
That, yeah, I've never really heard it put that way. And yeah, you can't have happy if you're not bringing it with you. That's, yeah, living intentionally became something for me. And I love talking to other people and just learning what that means to them, because I feel like it does mean something a little bit different to all of us as far as its true definition, but it's living in their own authenticity, right?
Mhm.
So not,
Absolutely.
so whatever I'm doing is authentic, you don't have to do whatever. And just loving people where they're shining.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
that's so important. And obviously, your word is thrive. Mine is bold, open, love. I have clients who want to feel explosively golden, is one of my clients. Tranquil, joyful, at ease, at peace. I mean, so happy is so many different things depending on who you are, but getting really clear on that because happy is such a generic word, it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to really connect with it anymore. But finding what is happy for you is actually the most helpful thing. And it's the most unique thing about us. Like our desires are the most unique thing about us and really can define us so that we can all be really living in our gold, and I always like to say, lean into your strengths and your gifts. Stop trying to fix all your flaws. A lot of
Yes.
flaws could actually be gifts and strengths if we focused on them being that way. I just believe that we get much further by leaning into our gifts and our strengths rather than worrying about all the things that might be wrong with us.
And I think that goes back to what you said earlier with just follow and chase the things that they're going right and the things that you want more of. So the same
Mhm.
thing, lean into your strengths and don't, yeah. I think it all just wraps together, and it's, uh, my hope is that through doing these podcasts and these interviews that like somebody's going to be able to hear something different in a
Mm.
way that they really need to hear it from somebody,
Mhm.
and it makes massive impact in their life. And so I love the words that you're using. They flow for me. Align, right? Lean into your strengths. I love those things, and I it's my hope that those are things that have an impact to other people. Um, have you found that having certain, like building certain habits or having certain routines help you to live that your bold, what did you say, bold love,
Open and
open?
love.
Yes.
Yeah, like there's a bunch of different rituals I do, and they're still based around these intentions that I have, right? So everything, all the choices, everything, even self-validation comes from these intentions. So the first thing I write down when I get to my desk every day is my intentions. I just rewrite them every day just to remind myself this is what we're aiming at right here. Because, I can wake up cranky in the morning and not want to do stuff. But as long as I keep reminding myself of my intentions, this is how I
Mm-hmm.
want to show up. And then I can also self-validate because sometimes we have like conversations with people that don't go well, or the project that we plan, something happened that we can't control. Really, all we can control is ourselves. So if I look back at those conversations, say, well, I didn't get what I wanted, but did I show up the way that I wanted to? Did I show up with boldness, openness, and love? Well, if I did, then I'm good, right? Then I've hit my goal because that's my only goal is what I can control. Um, it's nice to have outside goals, and all we can do is all I would like us to do, I would invite us to do is judge ourselves on how we showed up rather than how it turned out.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I'm working with clients and different things, and something that was taught to me a long time ago is, I track my activity, which is what you're saying. How are
Mm.
you showing up? Your activity. Did you do the things? Sometimes you have to release the result, just do the activity. Um, and yeah, so it's either, whatever resonates with you, do the activity, show up, right? Whatever way like hits you vibrationally that feels good, like
Mhm.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, not all the steps to our goals are going to feel good. I hate washing dishes. I mean, but they have to be done, right? Somehow they have to get done. And so, but how can I bring boldness, openness, and love to my dishes? Well, for me, I might turn on some Taylor Swift and I might, even put a crown on my head and be silly, right? To bring some of what I want to feel to what I'm doing because I mean, all the steps to our goals are not always going to feel bold and open and love, but we can hold both, right? Even when we are having hard times, people are like, oh, well, I couldn't get to my intentions because, I was having a rough week. I'm like, that's the best time. And we're very complex human beings, so we can have anger and fear and frustration and also hold bold, open, and love, or whatever your happy is.
Yeah.
All together. Like we can actually hold all of those because we're pretty complex. And it helps us refocus, right? Because we're refocusing from that survival mode, all the things that are frustrating me right now, to the bigger picture, which I always talk about it like survival is like we're in the ocean and all we're doing is we're like looking for sharks and stuff. We really want to get to shore. And not only do we want to get to shore, we want to get to that chateau on the top of the mountain, right?
Yeah.
But we're so busy staring and looking for sharks and focused on our fears and what's not going right, rather than that's where I want to go. And that really hurts us because it just we end up being good enough with the shore. Like it's just,
Yeah.
this is a comfort zone. I don't really have to take any risks trying to climb that mountain to get to that chateau.
In your journey of like getting there yourself, right? Finding that intentional living, like in your journey, have you had, was it easy, or did you find struggle in finding the balance between being comfortable and keeping your eye on the prize, right? Looking at that chateau, like, because sometimes, and I have personally experienced this, where I'm looking so deep at the prize that
Hmm.
I'm not stopping to look at what I'm doing, taking action. Does that make sense? Like, have you, where has that played a role for you?
Yeah. I mean, so it's whenever I lose my connection to my intentions because I've also like I always think of it like me being like a bull in a china shop. I see my goal and I'm like and what I have found is it's harder and it takes a lot more time. And I guess the way that I would say this is when I first opened my coaching business, I was like, oh, surely if I work 60, 70 hours a week, I'll be, getting ahead of things and I'll be able to move the business faster. And I've never made less money. And the weeks and the months where I limit myself to under 35 hours a week, I make more money and I show up
Mm.
better. I show up better for my clients. I am clearer about how I'm showing up, about what I'm saying, what I'm talking about. And so for me, it's really about, finding what really works. And I guess that's the masculine versus the feminine. I used to have a very masculine way of push and shove is really like the
Hmm.
aggressive is the masculine, crush it, crush that
Yes.
fear. That's very masculine, where the feminine is like, let me see here. Let me just sit here and see what I can receive or allow. And, accept within myself so that I can have it come to me, so that I'm not pushing. I'm kind of going with the flow of things. And if
Yeah.
I have to wait, I can be patient. And that's always worked out better for me. So just keeping that in mind, that just because we're working harder at something doesn't mean that we're doing a better job. Because let me tell you, 60, 70 hours a week did not feel bold, it did not feel open, and it did not feel like love.
Yeah, for sure. I know that, like, for myself and a couple of my clients, the same thing. Like, they to get to take your thinking from small, from the what do I got to do today, to
Mhm.
what am I doing today that it's going to affect me in 2 weeks,
Mm.
right?
It's going to have an
So,
impact. Yeah.
right. And
The right
sometimes,
things rather than all the things.
yeah, sometimes we have to stay in what do I have to get done today? Because that's really as far as I can think.
Mm.
And maybe tomorrow I can think about how that's going to have that impact.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just was telling you how we moved across the country, and it's at the time where my husband's work is really like tough and it's been really challenging for him. So there's been so much going on for us and his parents' health and everything. So there's so much going on for us. And the question that my entire household kicks around now is like, well, what's the next right thing? What's the next right thing? Not just what's the next thing, because that's what I did in my business in early years, is I did all the things,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I was like spinning my wheels. I might as well have been a hamster on a wheel. I wasn't getting anywhere. But when you start asking myself the question, what's the next right thing I can do? Not only does that focus me on action, something I can actually do about it instead of just sitting here and worrying about it and overthinking it, but it also reminds me that there's right action, right? And to me, right action means intentional, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's what's the next action that's bold, open, and love, and that will be the most impactful.
Yeah, I've had a mentor for many years, and that's what she says. What is especially when you're stuck, especially when nothing's going right, everything is raining down, chaos is all around me. I don't, and she would say, what is the next best thing that you can do? Because
Mm-hmm.
maybe the next best thing you can do is sit down and breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the next thing you can do is pick up the phone and call a client.
Mm.
And so I like that. What is the next right thing to do? And what another mentor always used to say was, action cures the blues.
Mm.
Action, activity, something, doing something rather than. And I just had a conversation with a girl at a coffee shop. She had a t-shirt on this morning and it said, success is a lifestyle.
Mm.
And I was
I
like,
like that.
girlfriend, yes, that is a vibe right there. And we
Mm-hmm.
were talking about, oh my gosh, my brain just went somewhere. We were just talking about, like, just sometimes you just have to think about where you want to go, where you want to go, and then break. That's what she said. She said sometimes I get stuck, and she said when she wears shirts like that, people point stuff out to her. They
Mm.
say things to her, and it triggers her brain to go, okay, keep going. You're on your path, is what she
Mm.
said. And I
That's
was like,
awesome.
that's genius. Like, I thought it was genius. Use your clothing to get other people to talk to you, to remind you to reset your mindset.
I mean, that's intentional living. That's saying, yeah,
Yes.
I'm in maybe a wounded or a victim or some kind of powerless place right now. But here's one little thing I can do is put on this shirt,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so tiny, such a tiny choice. It's not like she was carrying cancer or anything. She just chose to put on a different shirt today.
Yeah.
And I mean, that could change her whole mood. And that's what I mean by that's what we're talking about. Intentional living is, what are my intentions? How can I bring more of what I want into my life? And she knew. So she was like, I'm gonna wear this shirt and see if I bring on my happy, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. And even, maybe it's your intention to wear the shirt and nobody's going to say anything to you. And there will be somebody that you sparked and you'll never know. But maybe,
Absolutely.
maybe that's your intention too.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, I have a sticker on the back of my car and I hope it makes people laugh. It says feral Marine wife. Because if you've ever been a military wife, I'm just saying, you gotta be a little edgy.
I have been a military wife, so I understand.
But the whole goal of putting it, because I could have put marine wife, right?
Hmm.
I put it there to make people laugh. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just, intentional living is something that several years ago, and it really was. What is that next thing? Because I was in a lot of pain and my health was really right. And I was telling somebody this story yesterday about how I had two riding lawnmowers, and the whole front of our yard is probably like half an acre to three-quarters of an acre of grass. Okay, two riding lawnmowers that worked, and I was out there push mowing my yard in July in Arizona. And the neighbor comes over with his riding lawnmower. He said, "Oh my God, here, use my riding lawnmower." But I couldn't get myself to get up and walk because walking would help the pain in my legs because it would move the lymphatic fluid, right? But the thought of just walking was stupid. But if I was walking and completing a task,
Hmm.
my
Being productive.
brain, my brain could understand it. And that was in and it started, that's where the intentional living started for me, because it was like, okay, I'm intentionally not going to eat this because this is going to inflame my body. I am intentionally going to eat this because it's gonna, and so it was that word, I just kept using it,
Mm.
like how you're using bold, open, and love. I just kept using that word, be intentional. And sometimes I would put down the food. And it's not that it was like a weight loss thing for me or anything. It wasn't that. It was just,
Sure. So you
it
didn't
was,
get sick.
yeah, it was health, right? But it was sometimes just talking to myself allowed me to do the next right thing,
Hmm.
or
Yeah, I've
or
been there.
change mid course. Change, I like, I already have it on my plate. All right, it's in the trash.
Mm.
It's over.
Or even just tuning into our own bodies. We don't do that enough, I don't think.
Mm.
And that's part of being intentional is like tuning in and going, how does my body feel about that? I've also had lots of inflammatory disease in my body. And so, like, I often am like, oh, I want that piece of chocolate. And my stomach goes, nope. No, thank you. Please don't do that. We know it's going to taste good for a second, and then you're not going to feel good later. So
Yes.
I know which foods do that because my body tells me. And that's a skill that took me at least 10 years to develop because I had been taught when I was little to ignore my feelings in
Yes.
my body for so long, right? And or that I was too sensitive. Well, now sensitivity is a gift because I can look at food and decide whether or not that's good for my body or not.
Yes. And that 100%, girlfriend. That is where I decided to become a holistic health and wellness coach, because I was like, I changed my life through nutrition. And everybody's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, let me share." And so, yeah. As we wrap up, I want to just ask you, what is it that you would like our audience to know about you, your business, maybe who your ideal client is, how they can connect with you?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I'm a life coach and I have mentoring and coaching for midlife women is really where I focus. And midlife can be anywhere from 30 to I have clients who are 30 and clients who are up to like 65 or 68, I think is my oldest client. And I usually work in small groups for coaching. It's four or less women, but there's something really magical that happens with when women come together, and it's often like, oh, I need to do that. Oh, that's such great way that you resolve that, and they get so much from learning from each other in addition to their own work. So that's what I do. I do have a confidence. I really focus on confidence, self-love, and self-validation is where my
Yes.
expertise and my gifts are. And so there's a confidence toolkit that anyone can use if they go to my website, christina-smith.com/toolkit. And you
Okay,
can,
I'll make sure I put that in the description of this so people can
awesome.
click on it.
Yeah, and there's tools there to, part of it is setting intentions. Part of it is really looking at our gifts and leaning into them. So, yeah, that'll work with anybody. You don't have to be midlife and you don't have to be a woman.
Right? I like the group process too, because I feel like it's a place where we women can affirm each other, which is not something that I think comes totally naturally.
Well, it doesn't. It's in our DNA that we compete.
Mm-hmm.
there was a great book called Tripping the Prom Queen, which I forget the person who wrote it, shamefully. But Tripping the Prom Queen talks about our DNA. I mean, women are actually built to be more competitive than men because of procreation. Men can go
Mm,
spread their seed everywhere. Women can only technically have about one baby a year, right? And so, yeah, it's all about how we're naturally bred to be competitive. And so we have to overcome that. And we can, we can
yeah.
definitely overcome that. It's the same as we're built to survive, not to thrive, because that's what our DNA has been doing for thousands and thousands of years, and our bodies haven't changed any of that yet. But we can over time, and I hope that we do. I hope that we put a crown on everybody instead of just trying to be the queen in the room or, tear down the queen in the room. I hope that we can all be a bit more supportive of each other as we move
Yeah,
forward.
I feel like there's a movement kind of happening in that, where you're starting to see more of it. I previously, well, I mean, I still am, but I've been with Mary Kay for 15 years, right? And the one thing that I love about the company is that they say there's room for all of us.
Hmm.
And we're always about cheering each other on. And there's some other places that you don't see it. And I'm looking at other people going, really? I don't understand. That's not what we do.
I believe that's usually our wounded side. I mean, some people will be like, oh, that's your victim side. I don't like to use that word. Nobody likes
Mm,
the word. So I always try to see it as that's their wounded child. So when somebody is giving me snarky comments or passive aggression or sarcasm, that's like veiled, sarcasm.
yeah.
Just look at them and I just see like the 11-year-old them that was bullied or that,
Mm,
had some kind of trauma or abuse happen. And so being like when we're in that wounded space, we often go to shaming and blaming and being a nasty little brat, right? Because we're not getting what we need. And I don't think that people do it on purpose. I think it just
no.
part of our human design. And so I try to see the little kid in them and be
Yeah.
like, you're having a rough day.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I know I've been there. I know I have been where I was not the most pleasant person, let's say, with a cashier or
Mhm.
something. And then you get in the car and you're like, dang it. Or
Yeah.
even the next day you're like, that's not who I am. And you just feel bad, but you were having a moment. And even when I encounter that with other people, the same thing, I'm like, you know what? They're probably having a rough day. It was not personal. It was not.
Hmm.
And so I like the word wounded over victim. That's
Yeah.
powerful. I am really glad that you said yes to being on this podcast today. I will put your links in there so people can reach out to you. And I hope this was fun for you as well.
Oh, it was. Yeah. No, I love these conversations. I could continue to talk all day, but
And
at
I
some
think
point,
that
somebody's
this
gonna
was a
care.
perfect alignment. You and I like knew each other, but didn't really know each other, and just I got to know you a lot better. And I think there's a lot of things that you and I align in, and that's
Yeah,
really really cool. And
absolutely.
I think I'm gonna wear my crown while I'm doing my dishes someday.
Nice, do it. I've done it before. I have a tiara from my wedding, and I put it
Yeah,
on sometimes just to make myself feel regal. What would a queen be like if she was washing the dishes or cleaning a toilet?
I live in a house full of men, so that's really going to trigger some. They're going to be like, "What is wrong with her?" But I'll be
Happened to
living in
mom.
my authenticity and just being my weird self.
That's right. That's right. That's the only way you find the other weirdos that want to wave the same flag, right?
Awesome. All right, you guys, check out the links below and connect with Christina because she's one really amazing woman.
Thank you.